Well, it looks like the Steam Machine is Valve's secret weapon when it comes to solving the anti-cheat problem on Linux. And speaking of the Steam Machine, how easy or difficult is it going to be to buy? How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you are having a great week playing a ton of video games. I'll keep it short. Help me get to 100,000 subscribers. Subscribe, set your notifications to all. Let's get into this two-topic video. So the first thing I want to cover today is the anti-cheat situation on the Steam Deck and I guess Linux as a whole. I'm going to be real. Now that the Steam Machine has kind of gotten into the mass media market in terms of gaming media, a lot of people are massively overblowing how bad the anti-cheat issue is because, you know, it sucks that Destiny 2 doesn't work, but like how many people are playing that? It sucks that GTA Online doesn't work, but that's also a segmented user base. The real one that sucks for me is Battlefield 6 because I'm hooked on that game. I play it every single night, but for all of those games, there's plenty of other ones that work just fine, like the brand new game that's taking over the multiplayer world, Arc Raiders. I play that a lot on my Linux Bazite PC and of course my Steam Deck. And then you've got the Finals, which works well, Forza Horizon 5. I could list hundreds of games that work perfectly, but now everyone of course is focusing on the very few that don't. I'm not making excuses for Valve though. Obviously for the long-term viability of the Steam Deck and now the Steam Machine and the Steam Frame as a platform, you can't have games that are massive like Battlefield 6 or Call of Duty that just straight up don't work, and you can't throw your hands up and say, well, we're not going to do anything about it. It's something I've talked about a lot over the past year. If you're new here, I've been saying Valve should do some outreach to try to figure this out, but it looks like they found a way around it that just might work. The quote I'm about to read is from Eurogamer. They did an interview with Valve while they were, getting hands-on with the Steam Machine, which I'm still so jealous of, and they straight up asked if Valve is doing anything about games like Battlefield 6 not working. And what Valve said is, while the Steam Machine also requires dev participation to enable anti-cheat, we think the incentives for enabling anti-cheat on machine to be higher than on the deck, as we expect more people to play multiplayer games on it. So ultimately, we hope that the launch of Machine will change the equation around anti-cheat support and increase its support. Some people's gut reaction to that is that it's kind of a cop-out. Like, obviously it would be good if Valve went to all these studios, like went to EA and said, look guys, like a lot of people are on Linux, a lot of people are on SteamOS. This game will run well on the Steam Deck based on how well it runs on the ROG Xbox Ally. I assume that you guys are getting it ready for the Switch 2. Please enable anti-cheat support, because your whole excuse of more people cheat on Linux doesn't really hold water when Linux is such a small user base. Like, clearly the reason that they don't want to get anti-cheat working on Linux is because that's just another operating system for them to support, and because it's so small, they feel like it's not worth investing the time or the money. Like, I don't have that confirmed, but like I'd bet money that that's exactly what's happening. The reason that the Steam Deck hasn't been enough to push it over the edge though is because it's not really a multiplayer centric console. There are games that I play multiplayer wise on it, like Forza Horizon 5, like Arc Raiders, like the Finals, but it's definitely a subprime experience. I was going to say subpar, but it's subprime, right? Like the Finals at 30 FPS, you're at a little bit of a disadvantage. In Arc Raiders, I usually stick to the dam because there's less PvP there. I use it for looting runs, or if I have a key or something like that. I use it situationally, multiplayer wise on the deck. But when you're talking about the Steam Machine, which is a PC, like you're going to be using it with a mouse and keyboard in addition to a controller, I'd imagine that games like Counter-Strike 2, for example, are going to be opened up big time. People are really going to want to play Battlefield 6 on it. And if it sells as well as it seems like it's going to, because I've had this channel since before the Steam Deck came out, and the Steam Deck launch was obviously huge, but the numbers I'm seeing now compared to back then are absolutely insane. I feel like Valve's kind of onto something in the sense that if they get enough people playing a lot of multiplayer games on Linux, they can take the raw numbers over to EA and say, look how many people are playing Arc Raiders at any given time on SteamOS, and they're spending money, right? Like they're buying stuff in the store that I don't even think you can buy the like Helldivers style battle passes, but they're engaging with the battle pass. Look at the engagement numbers we're seeing on SteamOS and the multiplayer games that make this very simple change to anti-cheat that just makes it work fine on Linux. And they could show data that shows not that many people cheat on Linux. Like there's already cheats for Battlefield. I saw one for RedSec that teleports you to the center of the map and puts you below it so you can just cheat. The game doesn't work on Linux, so that's clearly happening on Windows. And I could honestly see that going pretty well, right? Like it's a numbers game at the end of the day. if you have a lot of people playing on a platform, these publishers are going to say that's potential money and they're going to want to support it. Like, I don't want to make it seem like the Steam Deck is a horrible selling device, but 5 million units does not equate to enough people when it's just a portion of 5 million. I know one thing that throws a thorn in the side of all this is, of course, the fact that a lot of anti-cheats that are coming out, like Javelin for Battlefield, require secure boot. I'm not sure if the Steam Deck has secure boot. I know that if you're playing on Windows, you can activate it because Call of Duty Black Ops 7 requires it this year, and people have been playing that on the Windows installs on the Steam Deck. So it has the capability. I just don't think it's there for Linux. But again, if they have enough people who want to use SteamOS to play these games, I guarantee they'll invest some resources into figuring out how to get, Javelin working without secure boot if Linux is never going to be able to support it, specifically with SteamOS. And my whole idea for Valve doing outreach actually comes from Sony. If you didn't know, I have a channel called PS Ready, and way back when the PS5 came out, there were a lot of third-party games that had great DualSense support, right? Like with Sony, there's always gimmicks with the controller. With the DualShock 4, it was the touchpad and the microphone. Then with the DualSense, they kept those, and then they added in adaptive triggers and haptic feedback. So when the Callisto protocol came out, it had great support for the DualSense and a little bit better performance on PS5. And the developer said it's because Sony has a team that they send out to third-party developers to help them figure out the architecture of the PS5 and integrate haptics and adaptive triggers with the DualSense controller. I don't think Valve needs to go that far, but if they're not in talks with these publishers, I think they should at least start them and get the ball rolling in terms of making sure these publishers know people want to play multiplayer games. Because at launch, they're entering a pretty hostile, toxic, competitive market when it comes to consoles, especially with Microsoft kind of fighting them head to head. Every little win they can get helps in the overall race to be the best, right? So I think it is important for them to figure out anti-cheat, but it's good to hear them at least mention it, because up until now, I don't even think they have. I've covered every interview Valve's ever done about the Steam Deck up until now, and nothing is coming to mind. I'm sure someone will let me know if they have down in the comments, which means you'll be able to read it. So it's a win-win. So we're moving in the right direction there, but depending on how you look at this, for the second news story, we're going to talk about how we're potentially moving in the right direction with how easy or difficult it's going to be to get a Steam machine. So there's this rumor going around, I don't know where or how it started, but essentially what's going on is people are saying that if Valve prices the Steam machine extremely fairly, so like $400, $450, $500, then they're going to have to fight off corporations who will come in and buy up the entire stock of Steam machines and make it so none of us can buy them. It's like a different form of scalping where they're not going to sell them. They're going to use them for corporations. Don't buy into that. It's never going to happen. And I know that because Valve is selling the Steam machine, at least at launch, the exact same way they've sold the Steam Deck. This next quote is coming from Casey over at Valve, who's a way high up person when it comes to the Steam Deck and I guess now the Steam machine. And what she had to say is, right now we are distributing the exact same way as Steam Deck. For us, it's important to just keep making Steam distribution better and better, and distribute times, add regions, things like that. We've been working on that in the background. Even just from the Steam Deck launch, I think now the experience of buying one of our harder products on the West Coast is quite a bit better than it was a few years ago. We've also been adding regions like Australia last year, so we're continually working on improving Steam distribution for hardware. So I know on the one hand, people really want to see the Steam Deck in-store shelves because, in Japan, they have all these great kiosks for it in the video game stores and they look amazing. I see the link that people are making between that and more people knowing about the Steam Deck, and I definitely agree with that because I've had to explain what a Steam Deck is 1,000 times. I edit a lot of these videos at Starbucks. I keep the Steam Deck there just in case I need quick B-roll or something, and like invariably someone will be like, oh, is that a Switch? So if you get it in stores, people will know what it is. I think it is much more important for them to just market the thing, like, make ads that you can play on TV, like the ones they played during the Game Awards, ads you can play on websites like YouTube. Like advertising, I think would go a lot farther than, putting this thing in stores. Either way, I think they need to figure something out there, but when it comes to corporations buying up Steam machines, that's not going to happen, because if they're running it the exact same way as the Steam Deck, there was some pretty stringent requirements for the Steam Deck OLED at the very least. Like with the OLED limited edition, you needed an old Steam account that had X number of hours of gameplay on it. I'm sure they'll do something similar with this, like at the very least require you to have a Steam account. And also, I've worked at an IT department at a chemical company for 4 or 5 years when I was in college and out of college. They all have contracts with vendors. So like a vendor is a middleman between Dell, which is the company that makes most of the PCs for corporations, and the corporation. And they're not going to undercut the vendor. They've got contracts, right? Because they don't just buy them in one batch. They buy a at batch, and then they hire more people, they lose people, they need more PCs, PCs break down, you continually go through the vendor, you have contracts for stuff like that. So it's never going to happen. Like maybe a startup of like 20 people who are, you know, just out of college and have Steam accounts for Counter-Strike 2 or Dota 2 or something like that. Maybe they'll buy Steam machines for their office and use them there, but that's not going to make anywhere near a dent in the overall stock of these things. So I wouldn't worry at all about that happening or influencing price in any way. As far as the pre-order system through Steam goes, on the one hand, they're kind of a disaster because you have to hammer the add to cart and checkout over and over again. Like it gets super jammed up right at 1 Eastern when everything launches, but then randomly like 15 minutes later, it all resolves and you're just fine. Like with the limited edition Steam Deck OLED, I went through this whole process where, you know, I added it to my cart, I kept trying to check out, it would bounce me back, and then eventually, because I did it too many times, it locked my Steam account, so then I thought I wasn't going to get one. It happened to a lot of people. Valve fixed it and everything was fine at the end of the day. So if it is a disaster like it has been in the past, I think they'll resolve it quickly, but hopefully they've learned from the multiple launches of the original Steam Deck, the Steam Deck OLED, the limited edition Steam Deck OLED, and the limited edition white Steam Deck OLED. Like they've done it enough times where there should be no excuse not to get it right. And they also don't have to deal with the insane supply constraints that were happening during the 2022 era, all the fallout from, you know, 2020 and everything that happened there. So I'm much more hopeful about the launch of the Steam machine than I was about the Steam Deck OLED, because we were still feeling that weirdness from everything kind of catching back up, from the world waking back up again. So, you know, it is a bummer that they're not going to, at least at launch, have this thing on store shelves. That's like a vanity thing for me. I want people to know about it. I want the community to grow. But if it is another niche little thing at the start that we get to be word of mouth marketing for, I'm also fine with that. I think they've figured their crap out when it comes to the distribution, and to give them credit, on the West Coast for my original Steam Deck, it took forever. I think it took like 3.5 weeks to get it when I ordered it. And then eventually, like over a year or so later, when I had to RMA it, that was like 2-day shipping. So they've opened up distribution centers around the world that should make it a little bit quicker. And more to their credit, they did start shipping it in Australia. I remember I was talking to my buddy Ralph, who runs SkillUp. He was having issues getting one because he couldn't get one and he lives in Australia. So like they've gotten a lot better. I think it's going to be fine. I understand that people are bummed that it's not going to be on store shelves, because I'm a little bummed it's not going to be on store shelves. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's the end of the world. So yeah, 2 positive updates when it comes to the Steam machine, the Steam frame, because all of this applies to that. It's very exciting. A week later, I'm still just as excited about this thing as I was when it was announced a week ago. As you can see, I brought the lighting back to how you guys like it. It's not necessarily the lighting, honestly, it's the color profile. I got a film pack that makes my camera look like I'm using 16mm film with a color profile. I thought it looked really cool. It does look cool in B-roll, but I see the point that, you know, it makes your skin look a little orangey or yellowy depending on what screen you're looking at it on. So we're back to normal. I just like trying new things, and I got into a situation where I was going on a trip to a wedding in Florida, so I batch recorded 3 videos before I left, and then I saw the first one go up. People were complaining. I was like, well, there's 2 more in the can. So we're through those. The lighting is fixed. I'm fine. I'm not like dying of the Resident Evil virus, but thank you for your concern. Anyway, guys, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.